The ring cannot be destroyed by any craft that we here possess. The ring was made in the fires of Mount Doom. Only there can it be unmade. It must be taken deep into Mordor and cast back into the fiery chasm from whence it came. One of you must do this.
I will take the ring to Mordor.
If by my life or death I can protect you, I will. You have my sword. And you have my bow.
And my axe.
Hi, my name is Stanislav Costiuc and I am a game designer. Today we'll discuss the console version of The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, released back in 2002 as a movie tie-in. Even though it is called The Two Towers, almost half of it is actually based on The Fellowship of the Ring, as that film didn't have its own tie-in game. The Two Towers is an action title where we choose to play as Aragorn, Legolas or Gimli as they accompany Frodo Baggins on his journey to take the One Ring to Mordor, before the Fellowship breaks and our playable characters venture into Rohan to help protect it from Saruman's armies. The Two Towers was released on PlayStation 2, Xbox and GameCube, with a PC port originally planned but cancelled later on, which I might add was a huge blow for me personally back in the day, as I absolutely adore The Lord of the Rings, both the books and the movies, but didn't own any of the home consoles, only PC. So I never got to play this particular game when it was released, which is a matter finally rectified. As always, we'll dissect the game using my Stasocritic system, the first category of which is design. This category has got the biggest weight, 4, because the way a game is played and structured is what matters for experience the most. The Two Towers has only one gameplay pillar, combat. It is a game about fighting through a series of linear set pieces based on the Lord of the Rings movies. And I gotta say, even though The Lord of the Rings features its fair share of action, to have that as the only defining characteristic is misrepresentative of the story it is based on. Though of course, focusing on a single action-based core makes it much simpler to navigate the complex environment of a movie tie-in development, especially back in those days. The core of the game is pretty straightforward. There is a certain number of basic attacks, speed, fierce, guard, push, alongside a couple of special actions like firing a projectile or finishing an enemy off, and you combine those actions to create combos. The more combos you execute without getting hit, the higher rating you receive for a kill, which means more experience points that you can use to buy upgrades and new combos after leveling up. And if you fill your combo meter, you get into a special temporary perfect mode where you deal more damage and each kill gets a maximum rating with most experience points. That's really the whole core and midterm loop of The Two Towers. And when gameplay is as straightforward as that, 3 things are important: implementation quality of the loop itself, depth, and variety. The actual moment-to-moment button presses feel good. The animations are swift and expressive enough, the actions are responsive, with the exception of drawing a ranged weapon, which feels very delayed and can get you in tricky situations at times. And that's only but a taste of many stumbles The Two Towers sadly faces when it comes to details. Another example, you can cancel any animation with a parry except the final combo animation. But the enemies can still cancel your combo if they attack, and their wind-up animations are quite short with no way for you to respond. Enemies have 2 types of attacks, one that just damages you and another that knocks you down. While the latter one has a red trail, animations aren't distinct enough to see which one is which in a group fight. and I'm not sure why, but the red attacks aren't always parried. So the only surefire way to avoid a knockdown attack is the jump move. But you can only jump backwards relative to the direction you're looking at, and that is not the most effective dodge. It really is useful only when you're fighting trolls. Then, even though there are plenty of combos, you won't really need a lot of them. For at least half of the game, your most used combo is going to be the Swift Terror one. Speed attack, fierce attack. It is short but efficient, so spamming it against unshielded enemies, of which there are many, is a very effective tactic. And even against shielded enemies it is useful if you start it early enough, as the last attack is going to destroy the shields. This bread and butter combo is then later replaced with Death Charge for usefulness, speed attack, push, and fierce attack. Here's the thing, the most useful combos in the game are those that have the least amount of speed attacks and end on a fierce attack. For example, there is a combo consisting of the following moves: fierce attack, fierce attack. I have never been able to do that combo successfully. The reason is simple. While conceptually it is for enemies against shields, which is why it starts with a fierce attack, shields cancel speed attacks in the middle of the combo. And sure, if there is just one enemy with a shield, it will work just fine, but most of the time enemies come in groups of 2, 3 or even more. So it is very likely your combo will get cancelled once you get to the speed attack. And push, while not effective against shielded enemies, it never cancels the combo, which is why Death Charge is strictly better than Swift Terror. And then later in the game you get another combo, Judgment, fierce attack, push, fierce attack. It's so useful against mixed groups due to the lack of a speed attack that in the final level, where there is a lot of both shielded and unshielded enemies, the most effective tactic is just to abuse the hell out of that combo, and you will easily get a perfect rating, at least if you play as Aragorn or Legolas. The Two Towers tries to add depth by having you play as one of 3 characters: Aragorn, Legolas or Gimli. Legolas is very fast, has high bow damage but low melee damage and health. Gimli has a lot of health, is slower but deals massive damage. Aragorn is the middle ground. This is fine in principle, though the differences don't go deeper than that. They all have the same combos, just with different animations and a couple of unique passive upgrades each. Now, the problem is that your combo meter, which defines your kill rating and experience you will receive, is based not on damage you give, but successful hits and combos you perform, and how many enemies are hit with the last move of the combo, which means they have to be alive when you deal that last blow. So it is very difficult to receive experience with a character like Gimli. He just kills enemies too fast, and often combos don't actually hit live enemies unless there is just a massive group of orcs in front of you. But then after you finally get that perfect mode, there is usually not enough monsters to use it on now. While Legolas is the absolute opposite in this regard. Because he is fast and has low damage, he can rack up perfect mode very quickly, and then use his bow, for which he has a massive amount of arrows, to easily dispatch a bunch of orcs in the area and rack up those perfect kills. It is great that the characters are defined enough that each requires a different style of play. But because your rating is not based on damage at all, the systems favor those who do less damage and have a longer attack reach. Though at the very least every combo ends with an area of effect attack, so even Gimli, who has a pretty short hit range, can still do successful combos without directly touching the enemy, if he doesn't kill them before that. This whole setup makes the passive damage upgrades counterproductive for getting perfect scores. Also, you get ratings and experience only for enemies that you kill directly, meaning if you explode some bombs or Uruk-hai suicide runners, you will not get any experience for the enemies that died in the explosion. And that goes against the grain of levels being specifically designed in such a way so you would make those big explosions, especially because things that blow up are prioritized when you lock on your ranged attack. Speaking of levels, they do a fine enough job of adding variety to the game. In essence, there is really just 2 styles of missions in this game. An arena-type level, like Balin's Tomb or Hornburg Courtyard, where you stay in a certain area as enemies come to you, and a corridor-type level, like Gates of Moria or Farngone Forest, where you progress through linear environments and kill the enemies you encounter. But each mission adds a certain twist to the chosen style, so you never feel that you're playing the same level. Amon Hen is a linear progression level, but you need to kill enough Uruk-hai before they reach Frodo. Plains of Rohan has you save a lot of different villagers by destroying obstacles and putting out fires, while the Westfold that comes after it, though it is still another linear progression level, has you destroy a lot of bomb carts and fight a very high number of Uruk-hai suicide bombers. The Deepen Wall is an arena level where you need to keep pushing ladders down so the walls wouldn't get overrun by orcs. But Gap of Rohan is an arena level about battling Warg Riders, a totally different style of opponents you won't see anywhere else. I wouldn't say that any of these levels provide depth or a lot of really interesting situations, but the twist and theme for each is enough to keep everything enjoyable. The same can be said about enemies and bosses. Each one is different but lacks depth, featuring only a single strategy required to defeat them. And while checkpoints do exist in this game, most levels lack them. This usually is not a problem unless you're playing the Breached Wall. There you have to defend on your own a door against a bunch of different waves of orcs and Uruk-hai. There are a lot of those waves, and at the very end a well-protected catapult boss that keeps doing consistent damage to the door. If you don't destroy it in time, that's a whole level from the very beginning without a single checkpoint. Good luck if you've been somewhat less than perfect in defending the door before the catapult arrives. To be fair, levels in this game aren't very long. Each takes about 10 minutes, which is great for a consistent change of pace for action, but on the other hand this means that with 13 chapters, even if you have to replay some several times, the campaign will take about 3 hours. Now, I'm not of the opinion that short length negatively affects the quality of a game, but this being a title based on 2 The Lord of the Rings movies causes a weird feeling that the Two Towers just jumps all over the place with no proper flow. Of course, you can still replay the levels with all 3 characters, and there is post-game content in the form of the Tower of Orthanc, a 20-floored gauntlet that you need to beat in one go, which unlocks a secret character who is Isildur, in essence just a different skin for Aragorn, so he doesn't provide any additional gameplay possibilities. And trying to get a perfect rating in each level for every character is only partially enjoyable due to the reasons I've mentioned before. With there not being much to add in terms of design, let's open up all the potential scores. Feel free to pause if you'd like to read them all. Based on everything I have said, I will assign a 6 to the Two Towers. It has a nice, straightforward core and a series of fun, varied levels. But its combat system, which is really the only system in the game, has got a bunch of flaws, and there is not enough depth to the game to make it sufficiently replayable to try and raise your skill level. You're really better off trying to abuse some of the more efficient combos to try and circumvent the issues of the combat system. Now it's time to talk about context. This category has a weight of 1 as it's about something that enhances the experience but doesn't necessarily define it. Plot, characters, motivations, arcs, player stories, etc. Now, even though The Two Towers is based on 2 The Lord of the Rings movies, we're going to rate how it fares in this category on its own without relying on the source material. The beginning of the game provides very good impressions. When you start, you literally see the prologue of the first film, which already does a good job at setting up the One Ring and the danger it poses. Then the movie footage suddenly transforms into game footage, and now you play as Isildur during the Battle of the Last Alliance. Based on this beginning, you'd think that the game would mix movie footage, game footage, and levels in such a way as to provide a proper retelling of the Lord of the Rings story, so everyone would understand what is going on. And even though technically The Two Towers does provide a mix of movie and game footage, the narrative lacks any sort of clarity. If the prelude to the first level shows how effective it can be at setting up the stage, what follows after is a good representation of the rest of the experience and how disjointed it can feel. After you finish the tutorial, the game does a montage of Isildur cutting the ring off Sauron but refusing to destroy it. Then suddenly the shot transforms into Aragorn, who tells himself that he is Isildur's heir but not Isildur himself. He reaches Helm's Deep, where he says to Eowyn, who by the way is never even named in this game, that the armies of Isengard are on the march. And then, without any explanation, it goes to a flashback of Nazgul attacking Frodo on Weathertop as Aragorn has to defend him. This is such a barrage of "wait, what?" that you haven't watched the movies or read the books don't expect to understand what is going on. You will get on a general broad level that there is this one ring that needs to be destroyed, somebody named Frodo has agreed to take it to Mordor to do so, and then for some reason he has separated from the heroes we play as, who now have to help Rohan. Yes, the game never shows or talks about the ring effect in Boromir, who really exists just as a background extra. Though of course that's still more than what 3 of the hobbits have got. Sam, Merry and Pippin aren't modeled as characters, so you never see them in any of the levels, and each gets literally just a single movie shot in cutscenes. One of which, by the way, serves as a motivation for Aragorn and the gang to go to Fangorn Forest, to track Merry and Pippin, who by the way are also never named, and after that motivation is set up, those two are promptly forgotten about. We meet Gandalf and he says we're needed elsewhere, and we're gone. Okay? And the game is full of stuff like this. So let's open up the possible scores for context. One might say that proper retelling of the Lord of the Rings narrative was never the goal for this game, but regardless, based on what we have, I will assign a 3 to the Two Towers. Unless you already know what this whole thing is about, you won't find anything in this game beyond a very broad and poorly connected idea of what the Lord of the Rings narrative is actually about. Let's move on to aesthetics now. This is another category with a weight of 1, as it's again about something that enhances the experience but doesn't necessarily define it, this time through visual style, music, sounds, etc. What the Two Towers definitely succeeds at is recreating the atmosphere of the films. When you start a level, you literally feel like you're there. The battle inside Balin's tomb, for example, with its dim environment and a single ray of light shooting towards the center of the chamber, with the same color gamma as the film, all this alongside Howard Shore's music and characters voiced by actors from the movies, all this does a great job of transporting you inside the locations of the films. The music is utilized dynamically in a simple yet effective manner. Howard Shore's score in the background changes depending on if you're in combat or not, and if you are, how many enemies are there around. Though I gotta say, it really feels like Viggo Mortensen isn't exactly excited to participate in the recording sessions. Being the narrator of many cutscenes, he has the most lines and... okay, listen to this.
I am Isildur's heir, not Isildur himself. My fate is my own. To Helm's Deep! Prego, go!
We have had no word from Moria in many years. They have fallen back. It is over for now. The whole process of the video game construction or building of it is new to me. They're fighting things and ninja things, I don't know what.
You can't tell me that he isn't bored to hell doing this, and that certainly influences how in the zone you feel when playing the game. And then, despite the overall visual and animation quality being on a high level, it does feature a lot of weirdness. Gimli's lip sync even in pre-rendered cutscenes is very static in comparison to other characters. A bunch of animations look weird, the most memorable one for me being the walking animation of the Rohan soldiers. Knowing that they're horsemen makes it especially difficult not to laugh when you see a bunch of them walking like that. Then the game does lack barks from tertiary characters like some villagers or even bosses, which can sound very repetitive.
Now kill that one! Now kill that one! Now kill that one!
With all that taken into account, I will assign an aesthetic score of 8 to this game. Generally speaking, it looks and sounds great, recreating the atmosphere of the movies very well. But there is all these weird things related either to models, or lip sync, or voice acting, or animation that just feel out of place and take you out of that amazing atmosphere. Now let's talk about Cohesion. This category has a weight of 2 and it's about how well all different aspects of a game work together to create a cohesive, holistic experience. Now, with what mechanics the game chose to focus on and how it is designed, I can't really say that it creates the Lord of the Rings experience on a holistic level. Sure, it is very nice how the Two Towers creates different fitting playstyles out of the 3 characters, Aragorn, Legolas and Gimli. But largely speaking, the Lord of the Rings theme doesn't matter. You could literally replace it with anything else, and it would work just as well in terms of gameplay, story, and even environments and goals. So in that sense, it is very gamey, meaning that, while being inspired by the Lord of the Rings, pretty much everything exists here just because it's a game, with the source material being a skin fitted onto it. That said, even though The Two Towers doesn't quite work as the Lord of the Rings experience, it actually feels great as a movie tie-in experience. I mean, just imagine, you insert the disc into your system and instantly footage from the Fellowship of the Ring starts playing, which then right in front of your eyes transforms into gameplay. And then when you get to the menu, it is built and structured in a DVD format, including different extras like interviews, behind-the-scenes footage, and concept art. This is exciting, especially if you bought the game shortly before the release of the movie you're waiting for. And this precise aspect leads me to assigning a score of 6 to The Two Towers instead of 5. Even though The Lord of the Rings is just a skin that doesn't really matter for the rest of the game to work, I can't deny that the concept of wrapping everything into this sort of movie DVD concept is smart and feels nice. It's time to talk about the last category, emotions. This is the most subjective category of Stasocritic, but it also has got the second biggest weight, 3. While it is entirely about my personal feelings, at the end of the day, personal feelings matter a whole lot. And we're not going to spend a lot of time here today, because I have just greatly enjoyed this title. I love The Lord of the Rings, and the movie adaptations are my most favorite films of all time, so I can't help but feel engrossed by the atmosphere this game recreates. Sure, the gameplay has flaws, and the short length creates a very weird pacing where you just jump from scene to scene with barely any connective tissue between them. But it's fun. I had lots of fun. This is why, if we open up all the possible scores for emotions, I will assign a 9 to The Two Towers. It's too all over the place to create emotions so powerful that they would transcend the gameplay experience, but still I've completed the campaign with all main characters. I didn't target a perfect rating in every level because I just didn't feel like I would find it worthwhile, but playing the same game essentially 3 times in a row is nothing if not a sign of great enjoyment. Time to summarize everything. When we take all scores and weights into account, the console version of The Lord of the Rings The Two Towers gets a Stasocritic rating of 64, which in the context of my system means that it's a nice game, just one that not everyone might be interested in. If you expect an action game with depth and considerable skill ceiling, then maybe The Two Towers is not for you. If you like action games with something one might call mindless fun, give it a go one weekend. And if you like The Lord of the Rings, then you should definitely try it out. I guarantee you won't regret it. Now, you might know that there have actually been 2 other totally different Two Towers tie-ins released, one for Game Boy Advance and one for mobile phones. You'll find links to my videos about them in the description and YouTube cards. Be sure to check them out too. Thank you all for watching. Have you played The Two Towers? If yes, be sure to leave your thoughts about it in a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course a special thank you goes to all my patrons. If you enjoy what I am doing, please also consider checking out my campaign at patreon.com/Farlands. The support means a lot.